There's a lot of streaming services out there, each filled with reality TV, comedy, drama, and of course, superheroes. But there's one dedicated entirely to nonfiction TV and documentary films, and that's Curiosity Stream. History, science, nature, we've got it. Space, dinosaurs, big cats, we've got that too. And pretty much anything else you want to explore. Go ahead, add some smart TV to your smart TV with Curiosity Stream. Go to curiositystream.com to sign up and start streaming today.
Why does quicksand work so slowly? Question everything. We did. It's how we created the all-new Hyundai Tucson with available innovations like a huge 10.25-inch infotainment screen and digital key technology. And you always get Hyundai's complimentary maintenance for 3 years or 36,000 miles. Test drive the 2022 Hyundai Tucson at your nearest Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
All right, Seth, we didn't get to this headline. Did you hear the good news? You know what that is right there?
What song is that? I know that song.
It's the theme to Ted Lasso.
Oh, yeah. I always skip the intro. So I knew it a little bit, but yeah. It's one of the best things Netflix, Apple TV, any of those people do is that you can skip the intro.
I like the intros, and the intro to Ted Lasso is super short. It's only like 15 seconds of that song. Darren Ravel tweeted this yesterday, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Jason Sudeikis has closed in on a deal that will pay him $1 million per episode for
Jason.
Ted Lasso Season 3, baby.
Ah, okay.
Where are you right now?
Was it in doubt that there'd be a season 3?
I have no idea if it was in doubt. I'm just glad it's going to happen.
I saw some people writing reviews. I can't read or consume much because I'm only midway through season 1. So I don't want to spoil it for anybody else out there that might just be getting turned on to this show about a goofy American football coach who somehow finds himself coaching a professional soccer team in England, but it's awesome. It's an awesome show, and he gets steadily less goofy as you go. But I have to. I know people are skeptical of the second season because it seems like his unstoppable positivity is getting to be a little too much. That's all I know. I can't read any more than
I
that.
love it. I think it's great. And you know why I think it's great? And I'll do this without spoiling anything, I promise. Yeah. It's a little like The Office. And Seth, you came to The Office later than a lot of people did. You binge-watched The Office. You binge-watched The Office at some point when you and I started doing the show together 2 years ago is when you made your real run through The Office. And I
did it for professional purposes. I felt like I needed to be able to get and tell more inside jokes with my listeners.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like this with The Office. The first season or two of The Office is really much lighter and funnier. And I'm not saying Ted Lasso in season 2 is not funny, but the characters get way more layered throughout The Office in seasons 3, 4, and 5. Like you really, the interpersonal relationships become much more woven into the tapestry of the show. You get a lot more layers on Steve Carell's character, Michael Scott. I'll compare Ted Lasso to Steve Carell in this case. There's just a whole lot more character development that goes on with all of the characters in season 2. I like that because it adds layers to the show. So I think you'll like it. I'm really anxious for you to catch up. Hurry the hell up is what I'm saying. I need you to catch up because I've got like 3 Ted Lasso segments that I've got in the holster waiting to do, but they would spoil the show for you. And I don't want to do that.
That sounds like something we should do on a... Yeah, okay.
Well, they're tied to the Texans. So maybe some bye-week stuff or something
there we
like
go.
that. Yeah.
So we'll spoil it for thousands of people, but not me, and that's what matters.
Well, we'll give a warning ahead of time that we're about to do a Ted Lasso segment.
I don't know. Honestly, Sean, I don't know how to talk about television anymore. Like, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about television shows on the radio because everything is so segmented. It's a Tower of Babel out there when it comes to the television shows that people watch because everybody's got all these different streaming services. There are Hulu people, there are Apple TV people, there are Netflix people. I just don't know who watches what.
Yeah, I'll say this about Ted Lasso, and this will be the last thing I say. I think you can make Ted Lasso topics relatable for people who haven't watched it here in Houston because there are some very, very Cully elements to the Ted Lasso character. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I think
Cully's actually got a little bit more edge than Ted Lasso.
Yes, for now.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I saw the scene where he got drunk and yelled at the little equipment manager guy, so I've seen that side of him.
Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. You are listening to Payne and Pendergast here on a Tuesday. Some of the things the Texans did well on Sunday, and I always like looking at the Pro Football Focus stuff after the game. I know the grades, especially certain parts of it that are subjective. And I know you linemen, Seth, get a little worked up sometimes about the lineman grades on PFF, on Pro Football Focus, because maybe the people analyzing and giving out grades don't totally know what the assignment is of offensive and defensive linemen.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the grades in general for any of the positions are only they get affected too much by what the scheme is. Like offensive linemen sometimes. If an offensive lineman gets left out on an island a lot and has to block Von Miller or whomever by himself, he might be the best offensive lineman in the league, but he loses more than the guy who gets help from a tight end every time. And so some of the times people will laud some of these offensive linemen like they're the best guys in the league based on their PFF grade. And you're like, no, that guy just gets a lot of help. Robert Penn was like that for a while with the Raiders. He always had like an extra offensive lineman outside of him, so he never lost. But people were acting like he was better than Dwayne Brown.
All right,
it annoyed me.
Tell me if this matches the eye test. Okay. With the Texans, they forced some really, really crappy pass blocking grades with the majority of the Jags offensive line. The only Jags offensive lineman that had even a decent pass blocking grade was Brandon Linder. Other than that, they forced some really bad grades.
I don't know if they should have been really bad. I know they had some really bad errors in the game. Tyrod Taylor, and this was really driven home when I rewatched it yesterday. Tyrod Taylor made those guys right quite a bit. The left side of the line had some really bad mistakes in pass protection versus D-line games. That's when it's not a blitz, it's just defensive linemen twisting with each other. The end goes first, the tackle loops around. So it's not overly complex. They had a really hard time in two of the huge strikes to Brandon Cooks, both in the first quarter and then the end of the third quarter or at the beginning of the fourth quarter when he hit Brandon Cooks deep in the south end zone again there. Both of those plays came when the offensive line had multiple screw-ups on the in pass protection. Yeah. So that is something that, and Justin Britt talked about this yesterday. They've got a lot to clean up. Tyrod Taylor did a really good job on the bad plays of getting himself out of trouble and then either throwing the ball away or finding Brandon Cooks downfield. Some of the best opportunities came when Cooks kind of out of desperation heaved it deep because there were people in his face.
Yeah, it was late in the third when that Cooks catch. Yeah, Seth, it's funny. They scored 37 points, and I feel like they left a lot of points on the field. Yeah. You know what I mean? They did 37. Inherently, they left points on the field because they kicked 3 field goals in the game. And there were some situations. There were a couple times in the second half. I mean, I'm looking at I was charting the second and third downs in the game just to see how they were doing down and distance-wise throughout the game. They did very, very well. There were two instances in the second half. Early in the second half, they had a 2nd and 1, a 3rd and 1, and then eventually had to punt on a 4th and 1, and then they had another 3rd and 1 a little later on in the second half that they didn't convert. If they were just better in short yardage situations, they might have scored 50 points in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the really interesting part about that is that Tyrod Taylor is very mobile. He's 31 years old. He'll be 32 later this year. Or no. He turned 31 and he stays 30. Or is he 32 now? He's 32 now. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I get him and David Johnson confused. Yeah. Let's say he's 31, 32 years old. I think he turned 32 in early August. He's still very mobile, obviously. He can still move. I think he was a mobile quarterback, and I don't remember him taking a lot of huge hits in that game. And when he did, it was when he was throwing a completion a lot of the time, or he got rid of the ball a few times. But he didn't take any mega hits. The thing I'm wondering about is if he's had a guy quite like Brandon Cooks. He played in 2015, which was his best year, with Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods. Neither of those guys is necessarily the deep speed threat that Brandon Cooks is. They're both good receivers, don't get me wrong. But I think he's more capable of throwing the deep ball than people give him credit for. He's just never done it all that frequently. He might have a little bit different element to his game this year with Brandon Cooks, especially if he can buy time and find him deep late in the downs like that.
Laramie Tunsil is probably the Texans' best player that's suited up on Sundays, obviously. He, according to the PFF grades, he shut down K'Lavon Chaisson. He only gave up, I think, 2 pressures in 40 passing snaps.
Yeah, I think Tunsil did just fine. You know, he did Tunsil things. I think there were a few times where I thought it looked like the timing and the relationship between him, the coordination between him and Titus Howard might be a little bit off because of the time that Laramie Tunsil missed.
Yeah.
He missed a good chunk of time. His legs are probably still coming back from missing the time because of COVID. We don't know necessarily how ill he was or how much conditioning he missed out on.
Yeah.
But I thought there were a few moments where it looked like that. Again, there were some bad snaps in the game that both he and Titus Howard messed up on in some of these games. They got to get that right because it was free and quick pressure on Tyrod Taylor, and they're mental errors that those guys are better than. I think they just need a little bit more time. Hopefully they'll take it as a learning lesson. You get the benefit of the learning lesson while also getting the win, and they can clean it up by this weekend. Because obviously these guys, Josh Allen and Clavon Chason, are very promising young players, whereas Myles Garrett is a bona fide stud.
If we were power ranking the individuals on the Houston Texans after 1 week, this is the one Texan who might have climbed the highest on the list of most valuable Texans after week 1. We'll tell you who it is next.
There's a lot of streaming services out there, each filled with reality TV, comedy, drama, and of course, superheroes. But there's one dedicated entirely to nonfiction TV and documentary films, and that's Curiosity Stream. History, science, nature, we've got it. Space, dinosaurs, big cats, we've got that too. And pretty much anything else you want to explore. Go ahead, add some smart TV to your smart TV with Curiosity Stream. Go to curiositystream.com to sign up and start streaming today.
Why does quicksand work so slowly? Question everything. We did. It's how we created the all-new Hyundai Tucson with available innovations like a huge 10.25-inch infotainment screen and digital key technology. And you always get Hyundai's complimentary maintenance for 3 years or 36,000 miles. Test drive the 2022 Hyundai Tucson at your nearest Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
How is your mental health? Billie Eilish, Kevin Love of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Imagine Dragons, Lil Nas X, and so many more feel the same pressures we do. They're joining our host, Carson Daly, for I'm Listening, September 23rd, starting at 6 p.m. right here. Carson and a cast of mental health experts, athletes, musicians, other notables, and you will share stories, insights, and help us all remember that we are not alone. Please join us, because talking about our mental health has the power to save lives. For more, visit imlistening.org.
Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast, presented by Allied Home Security.
Taylor, pressure arriving, throws it, caught at the 10 and dragged down at the 5. Pharaoh Brown, 1st and goal, Houston.
Pharaoh Brown with the one-handed catch. That was one of the really, really great plays on Sunday. The Texans beat the Jags 37-21. Here was David Culley on tight end Pharaoh Brown.
His physicality in the run game was what we expected. As I said before, those guys are an extension of our offensive line and our run game. I mean, he is a large individual, Aaron, and I'm telling you now, his physical presence is a factor. Size does matter up front, and the thing that I was happy to see for him, and he hasn't had a whole lot of opportunities during his career to have a chance to make some of the plays that he made for us yesterday. And it was good to see that happen, and then the one play that he and Tyra had was just a tremendous, tremendous play. And I was so happy for him being able to do that.
Culley went on to say, Seth, that Pharaoh Brown had dropped like 3 passes at practice on Friday. Like he had a really bad dress rehearsal for the game on Sunday. He dropped a bunch of passes.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
So Jamar Chase dropped a bunch in the preseason, then looked just fine on Sunday.
He did.
So likewise, Pharaoh Brown, Jamar Chase, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Pharaoh Brown's a great story. And look, we spend our fair share of time on this show and on this station criticizing Bill O'Brien. So when we criticize him for all of the bad moves that he made, it's worth acknowledging Bill O'Brien is the one who signed Pharaoh Brown off the street last year. He did come in early in the season because I remember O'Brien couldn't stop talking about what a great story Pharaoh Brown was, and he has turned into it's a no-brainer. He is clearly the best tight end on this team. There's no question.
I think I'm pretty fair with O'Brien because at times people have thought I'm crazy for saying that. I think Bill O'Brien is actually potentially a really good head coach. He has a couple key blind spots that hold him back. One is this need to micromanage inappropriately. Like when he was, the stories were that over the last couple years, especially, he would be a head coach on Wednesday and Thursday and then all of a sudden dip into the offensive meeting rooms on Friday and start tinkering with things. And it's really hard to do when all of a sudden you've got a shifting set of expectations, rules for the week, a playbook, all of that, when your coach is meddling in the offense only part-time. Likewise, I think sometimes his willingness or his need to take on too many responsibilities ended up being part of the reason he'd blow like a teapot like he did. And then obviously what it culminated in was O'Brien he shouldn't have been the general manager. I mean, that's just flat out. He's not a general manager. I think he learned that lesson. I don't think if he ever takes a job in the NFL again, I don't think he's going to be delusional enough to think that he should be handling the contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is why his next job will be a college head coaching job. I firmly believe that because he can have all that power and it's far less.
But everybody makes the same salary other than whatever they're making in their NIL. But he's you know what he can be, Sean? He's a good communist dictator. He doesn't like people that he doesn't have to try to figure out. He likes it when your best players and your worst players are all making the same amount of money because it's kind of what he did.
Yeah.
He paid some of the worst players like they were the best players.
It's true. Yeah. So back to Pharaoh Brown. Seth, if we consider value to the team, like we're talking about like most valuable Texans, if value is, to me, a value is a combination of how good are you at your job, what's the importance of your job, and what's the level of drop-off from you to whoever's backing you up. Like that to me, value is some sort of combination of those three things. I think the most valuable Texans, I don't know that you get past a half dozen guys before you get to Pharaoh Brown on this team right now. And look, some of that is, okay, if they were a better team, they'd have more guys in front of Pharaoh Brown on this argument. I understand that because I know there's a lot of you probably saying that. Like, well, yeah, he's so damn valuable and good at his job because they don't have enough players who are great at what they do. I would say the list goes to me, and you tell me if you vehemently disagree with this. I would say Tyrod Taylor is number one because he's been good in the one game at what he's done, and the importance of his position compared to the others is through the roof, and his backup is Davis Mills. Number two is Laramie Tunsil. Number three is Brandon Cooks. I would say number four, and people are going to laugh, I would say is Cam Johnston, the punter. Hopefully a lot of you watched the game Sunday, saw what Seth and I have been talking about throughout training camp, and saw like this guy's really good at what he does. And
he did have kind of one line drive rocket, and I was particularly distraught over that.
And the net was still like 49 yards.
Yeah, but with a nice return. So
yeah, coverage is good. Justin Britt to me is 5, and I'll go Pharaoh Brown. I'll go Pharaoh Brown 6th. I don't think you get past a half dozen guys before you get to Pharaoh Brown on this list.
I've got at least one exception.
Okay,
and it's that I don't know what this team would be without Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, kind of like Tyrod Taylor, made the pass protection look better than it was. Mark Ingram did stuff on a few particular plays with blocking that was okay but not great. But he hits the hole so hard, and he's got such good vision and understanding for it that the other guys on the roster wouldn't have done what Ingram was able to do in the first half. I know Ingram's final numbers aren't all that impressive, but in the second half he was running into a lot of 8-man boxes. The Jaguars knew the Texans were going to try to run out the clock. That guy is just a full-blown football player. He might be. I know I've said that Justin Britt is my favorite player. Some of that's just based on I like his press conferences. As far as the actual football playing, Ingram's my favorite new guy. I mean, he's just a badass. I love the guy. I don't think Philip Lindsay would have done nearly the same thing. I don't think David Johnson would have done nearly the same thing. You know that Rex Burkhead couldn't have. So without Ingram, and I'm actually a little bit concerned moving forward. Like, what are they going to do when Ingram doesn't run the ball 25 times? Without Ingram, I think they actually might have had a competitive game versus Jacksonville.
Do you think that they kind of load manage him a little bit as the season goes along? He obviously can't carry the ball 26 times every Sunday.
I think they have to. Yeah. Although he's a relatively youthful 31-year-old running back, as running backs go. He's never had more than 230 carries in a season. At times when he was in when he was in New Orleans, they always had multiple running backs on the roster and didn't seem to really hang their hat on any of them. I wonder if there's a part of him that kind of just wouldn't mind being a bell cow once in his life, once in his career. The problem is that it would be financial suicide because anybody's going to look at him next year and say, wait, you're 32 years old and you just had 300-plus carries in a season? I don't think so.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's at that stage where he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. You know what I mean?
So he might just go for it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if he's splitting carries evenly with Phillip Lindsay, guess what he's going to get next year? Probably 1 year, $4 million. If he's a bell cow, guess what he's going to get? 1 year, $4 million. You know what I mean?
Hey, I really like Phillip Lindsay's attitude, but that kid is a one-car accident waiting to happen, man.
Into a wall.
He's a reckless teen driver. He flings himself at the wall like with reckless abandon without really any care about where he is or what he's doing. Yeah. I really, really like his energy and enthusiasm and everything, but he's just got to settle down a little bit because I don't think he's going to have really good field vision until he learns to just slow it down a little bit and see things and let the game come to him.
Ingram aside, am I off base at all on my assessment of Pharaoh Brown and the value to this team right now in terms of value of what he's doing, blocking and pass catching, and the value he represents versus the next tight ends on this roster right now?
I think you're a little out of line because I don't think any of these guys are just going to be studs no matter what they do wherever they go. Aikens created a lot of opportunities for other guys. Aikens was really good and looked like a savvy veteran in the picks and in the rub game, where he was selling it really well. He'd be out on a route, and he was actually just bulldozing people out of the way to create opportunities for other guys, but never got flagged for it. I thought Aikens did a really good job of that, and I think that you're probably going to see Aikens and Pharaoh Brown maybe take turns having big games here and there. Now, Pharaoh Brown is a blocker. The first touchdown that Ingram got, Pharaoh Brown played fullback on that, did a really good job. He had another few really good blocks in it. I think he's the best all-around tight end, but I just don't count on Aikens on having some big moments.
Okay, so Aikens didn't show up in the box score. Like, Aikens was targeted twice, didn't have a catch. So the average Texan fan will look at the box score or maybe watch that game and go, man, Jordan Akins was invisible out there. Where the hell was Jordan Akins? What you're saying is that in film on Monday or, tomorrow, whenever they're watching film of that game in the tight end room, he's getting praised heavily for what he did.
Yeah, he did some of the selfless stuff really, really well. He occupied. He's almost like he was like the nose tackle version of a tight end, where there were times where he was occupying too. He was occupying the guy that was covering him and the guy that he conveniently ran into while he was out on his route. That's a hard skill to. It's hard to motivate guys to want to be good at it, and then it's still hard to actually be good at it too, because you got to have an understanding of how guys are, what the defensive players are trying to do in coverage and what route they're going to take.
All right, the Deshaun Watson trade and replacement report. How did the starters for the teams that are potential suitors for Deshaun Watson do this weekend, and his potential replacement? One particular one in the college ranks is shooting up the charts right now. We'll tell you who it is next.
There's a lot of streaming services out there, each filled with reality TV, comedy, drama, and of course, superheroes. But there's one dedicated entirely to nonfiction TV and documentary films, and that's Curiosity Stream. History, science, nature, we've got it. Space, dinosaurs, big cats, we've got that too. And pretty much anything else you want to explore. Go ahead, add some smart TV to your smart TV with Curiosity Stream. Go to curiositystream.com to sign up and start streaming today.
Why does quicksand work so slowly? Question everything. We did. It's how we created the all-new Hyundai Tucson with available innovations like a huge 10.25-inch infotainment screen and digital key technology. And you always get Hyundai's complimentary maintenance for 3 years or 36,000 miles. Test drive the 2022 Hyundai Tucson at your nearest Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
You want to know what wagertainment is? It's the picks, the analysis, the information, mixed with the laughter and the entertainment. Smart sports betting content that'll put a smile on your face.
The BetQL Network, streaming live each day and helping you bet smarter.
If you're a sports fan, you know why you should listen. It's sports betting content without the BS. No hot takes, no nonsense.
The BetQL Network, streaming live right now on Odyssey.
Sports, bets, and entertainment.
Live from the Twin Peaks studios, Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
Payne and Pendergast with you on a Tuesday. All right, so the Deshaun Watson, we'll call this futures report here. We've got to look at two things here, Seth, each week. We got to look at the college ranks for how some of the potential future franchise quarterbacks are going to do, and then we've also got to look at how the potential suitors for Deshaun Watson, how did their quarterbacks perform to know what's the market going to look like when Deshaun becomes a tradable asset again for Nick Caserio and the Texans. Also, Ben, this probably requires a little bit of music underneath if you got something in the jukebox in there.
Liven it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Make me sound interesting, Ben.
Yeah.
A little bit sexy, too.
Yeah, a little Sade underneath would be nice.
Yeah.
Seth, there's not much to dig into from the standpoint of the college quarterbacks that we've talked about from over the weekend. Most of them played really, really bad competition. Desmond Ritter of Cincinnati beat up on Murray State. His stats were fine. Malik Willis of Liberty beat up on Troy. His stats were normal, 100 yards rushing, a couple 100 yards passing. Spencer Rattler put up big numbers against Western Carolina. They won 1-0 in that game. Matt Corral, who I'm really starting to like from Ole Miss, and he's I think he's second on the Heisman board right now, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to play Alabama at some point here. That's going to be a fun game. They beat up on Austin Peay. Sam Howell. Okay, Sam Howell's a name who looked horrible in Week 1 against Virginia Tech. He played Georgia State. Not great level of competition, but at the very least, he looked like a competent college quarterback. Again, he threw for over 300, and he rushed for over 100. He is someone who gets compared often to Baker Mayfield. If we're trying to look at ties to the game coming up this weekend, Sam Howell his comp for a lot of people is Baker Mayfield. He put up big numbers this weekend. So there's that with Sam Howell. Keaton Slovis is the one that probably had the game that he'd like to forget because his head coach wound up getting fired after the game. Clay Helton of USC got fired yesterday because they lost to a horrible Stanford team over the weekend.
What's the best thing for Keaton Slovis? Is it if Urban Meyer comes in all of a sudden? How athletic is Keaton Slovis? Can he run an Urban Meyer system?
They run a Graham Harrell system out there right now. They're running some form of the air raid out there right now.
Yeah.
So it's more of like Kingsbury kind of stuff.
So it's not going to be like it's a simple and easy transition if Urban Meyer were to. He wouldn't take it over midstream or anything. No,
my guess is Slovis is ready to go pro after this year. Either way is my hunch. Kind of similar to Davis Mills last year. Just ready to move along and then get the clock started on your pro career.
I think that the biggest takeaway, and obviously since none of those guys really played anybody that's going to get you excited or hyped up, and it's weird because otherwise it was a really exciting weekend in college football.
Yeah,
there were upsets all over the place.
Yeah.
It was really, honestly, it was pretty incredible weekend of football when you consider all of the upsets. Sorry, Texas, in college football, and then some of the upsets or some of the surprises in pro football, and then the ratings match that as well. Yeah. There has been some really, really good ratings that make it feel like, okay, whatever was going on last year, really at the onset and right in the middle of COVID when everybody was trying to figure everything out, things have settled down to the point where people definitely want to watch some football.
Here's the name that is climbing the charts, and I say this, I'm looking at the mock draft. There's already mock drafts out for next year. There's always mock drafts, and they still got the Texans picking number 1 next year on the CBSSports.com mock draft. This is Ryan Wilson. The number 1 overall pick, Carson Strong. Carson Strong of Nevada. And his comment is, this all comes down to the medicals on Strong's knee. He had a knee injury going back to high school. He's the most consistent quarterback in the draft class. If he's healthy, he would give the Texans some much-needed stability at the quarterback position. Carson Strong, he played Idaho State this weekend, so again, like a lot of these guys, this was not a weekend where he was massively tested, but he put up huge numbers this weekend. So Carson Strong, if you guys are looking and you're surfing around this weekend looking to find a quarterback to go watch on one of the ESPN Plus channels or whatever, we'll give you our viewing guide later on this week for these quarterbacks. Carson Strong is a name that is early in the season shooting up the charts for a lot of people.
This is Ross Tucker asked us a question earlier that's becoming more and more the appropriate question, which is, well, if the Texans were to tank really hard, like if they were trying to get number 1 overall, who are they even trying to get? And I don't think that there's a clear-cut answer. I'm looking at a mock draft right now, another one from CBS, where the second quarterback taken is Spencer Rattler with the 10th selection. You know, it's not so far shaping up to be that kind of a year where, like this last draft, where all of a sudden you had people angling all over the place. You had San Francisco trading away their entire future just to reportedly have a spot where they could draft one of these guys, and they didn't exactly know which one.
To draft the third one of the three. They gutted future drafts just to get the third pick.
Reportedly, they were super interested in Mac Jones, too. They just hadn't quite figured it out. Yep. So I don't think it's going to be that kind of year. Now, look, it didn't quite look like that kind of the year at the beginning of last season either. We'll see. It's just I am growing less and less enamored with the thought of getting the number 1 overall pick.
Yes.
And I mean, it's always the number 1 overall pick more times than not ends up being more of a burden than a blessing. But especially in a year where there's no clearly defined this quarterback is the chosen one, I'd rather have a team that's establishing some baseline of competitiveness that still drafts pretty high, most likely, but doesn't need to be number 1 overall because it's fool's gold most of the time.
I've taken the over on the Texans, over 4.5 wins. If you win 5 games, you're not picking first in the draft. Okay, so let's start there. So I'm already somebody who wants them to win football games, yet I still feel organically they're going to play themselves into a pretty good spot still in the draft. And as you pointed out to Ross earlier, Seth, this is all with Deshaun Watson in the background as a potential draft stimulant over the next 3 years to add multiple other picks to the draft. So I'm not worried about that at all. I'm with you on that.
Sean, if they ended up getting like Kayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end, or Evan Neal, the offensive lineman from Alabama, like some stud lineman, I'm inclined to be just as excited about that as some jackass quarterback. Who the problem with quarterbacks is they're either the guy or they're not. You get a nice offensive or defensive lineman, even if they don't completely work out, they still end up being pretty nice players usually. Yeah. I just if I'm not in love with a quarterback prospect, I'd almost rather not take one at all.
You know what I need, Seth, for these college quarterbacks? I need a database that I can visit, and I'll call it the Connor Cook Memorial Database. I need to go see if all of these guys are the actual captains of their team.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I need to see. Remember when Connor Cook fell to the 4th round because he wasn't the captain of his team? And by the way, Connor Cook deserved to fall to the 4th round of the draft in retrospect, as it turns out. I don't even know if he's in football anymore. But I do need to know. I do feel like for a quarterback in college that the mere cover charge to get into this conversation, that is a red flag for me. If you're not the captain of your college team, one thing in the pros, you got adults, and if you're a younger quarterback, it's going to take you a while maybe to get your pelts on the wall and so forth. In college, you best be one of the captains, or I don't want to be drafting you with a high draft pick.
Yeah, it's there's something about it. Now, Tua Tagovailoa is not a captain with the Miami Dolphins, and people are always careful about this. You get the sense that they want to make a big deal out of it, but they don't, because it seems like the kind of thing it sounds like a boomer take. It sounds like you're going to be just like, oh, no, yeah. Modern analytical type people understand that there's no such thing as leadership, actually. It doesn't exist. It's all an illusion.
Yeah.
No, it does matter. It's not always a death knell or anything, and there are plenty of quarterbacks. Eli Manning himself would probably be the best example of a guy who wasn't a great natural leader, not like his brother is, and that wasn't nearly as demanding, but his personality type was just fine for what his team wanted out of him and what it needed out of him. So I don't get overly worked up about that. But if you're talking, if it's that in combination with a bunch of other stuff, I just don't know.
I'm a total mark for that argument. Oh, your QB's not the captain? I'm a total mark for it. I love it.
well, this is the thing, too.
Yeah.
If scouts are making a big deal out of it, it's usually because there is something
There's
to
other
it.
stuff. Yeah,
like,
other stuff.
it's code.
Yeah.
Like with Josh Rosen, remember with Josh Rosen, the talk was, well, people fear he might be too intelligent for his own good. And then people hear that and they react and they act like, oh my gosh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Right. Because that's not what they're actually saying. What they're saying is he's a guy that needs you to know that he's smarter than you. Mm-hmm. And that's a bad leader as a quarterback. Like, that's not a good attribute for a quarterback to have. So you got to read between the lines a little bit when you start seeing them. There are quarterbacks who aren't team captains where maybe that's just the structure of the team or what have you, and it's not that big a deal. If scouts are making a big deal out of it, it's usually because there's more that meets the eye, than meets the eye.
So we shift gears. Those are the college quarterbacks. Again, not a lot of movement because not a lot of them played high-level competition. Keep an eye on Carson Strong. That's a name that seems to be rising up the charts as far as potential drafted quarterbacks come next spring. As far as the suitors in a Deshaun Watson trade, it seems like, Seth, over the last month or so, it's been whittled down to Miami being the front runner to make a trade, Philly always being mentioned, but maybe Deshaun doesn't want to go there, Denver always being mentioned going back to last year, and Carolina's owner still loves Deshaun Watson, even though they traded a bunch of picks for Sam Darnold. It's been one game, so I don't know that one game is going to move anybody off of wanting to trade or not trade for Deshaun Watson. I think I'm always going to keep an eye on Miami because that's where Deshaun seems to want to go. Tua had a decent enough game. They beat the Patriots in New England. That's a good win, but he was not spectacular by any means. The one that I found most interesting, and maybe it's a moot point because Deshaun may not want to go to Philadelphia, but boy, Jalen Hurts sure did have a nice week one that would seem to indicate he is one game into his second year. He's ready to make a big jump. 27 of 35, 264, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 62 yards rushing.
Right.
On Sunday.
Both Tua and Jalen Hurts are in interesting positions because you always wonder how much of a chance does a guy really have if the team is taking a wait-and-see approach with them. With quarterback, there's so much to it where you feel like let's go back to Eli Manning. Eli Manning had the full support and commitment of the New York Giants because he was number 1 overall draft pick. Wait, what was he? Was he number 2? Number 1?
Who are you talking about?
Eli was number 1.
Eli was 1.
Number 2.
Eli was 1. Rivers was
flopped,
4. Yeah, Eli was 1. Rivers was 4.
And it took him a few years. Eli did not have a quick start whatsoever, but he had the full support of the organization. All the resources went to Eli, and it ultimately ended up working out with him. A guy like Tua or Jalen Hurts, you don't get the sense that they're going to get that at all. So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the guy doesn't have the full support of the GM and the head coach and everybody else, does that harm his development? The only thing he can do is go out and try to prove people wrong. I think Tyrod Taylor was in that position once with the Buffalo Bills in 2015, and he went out and really impressed the Buffalo Bills, and he got a nice contract out of it. So it's not like it's an impossible hurdle to get over or anything, but it's just a little bit tougher, obviously.
All right, so those two elements we just did, the future rookie quarterbacks and then the trade suitors for Deshaun, those all operate under the assumption that eventually the Texans are going to move on from Deshaun Watson. We had Ross Tucker on the show a little bit earlier, and the three of us, me, Seth, and Ross, got into a conversation about, hey, what would the fans do if indeed you did start Deshaun Watson if you're the Texans? And we said, well, they're kind of split down the middle on whether or not they'd want Deshaun to start. Most of them are anti-Deshaun right now based on the allegations, but there's that big chunk of the fan base that would be able to compartmentalize Deshaun the massage patient versus Deshaun the franchise quarterback. Text message, and you can text the show 713-572-4610. This text goes back to that topic, but I think it's worth reading because we're talking about Deshaun here. Fans would forgive Deshaun in a second if he said he wanted back in. Most don't care that he's a scumbag. That's a text calling him that, not me calling him that. I don't believe that, Seth. I mean, that's a blanket statement that fans, and when they read that, I don't think I read that to mean 100%, but I read that to mean most. And I don't think most of the fans would forgive Deshaun. I think a small majority of the fans would rationalize his being on the field for their football team, but I don't think most would all of a sudden go buying his jersey again. Put it that way.
I don't know. And now times are a lot different. But people felt pretty strongly about Kobe Bryant at the time. And now that was one person, and it was settled out of court. He wasn't like he was ever found guilty of anything. But for practical purposes, people had very strong opinions about Kobe Bryant, one way or the other. And ultimately, by the end of his career, it was barely ever mentioned.
He was a hero by the end of his career, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that there were people in the LA fan base. Some women. I can't remember who the woman was. Wrote a pretty impressive article about just that kind of compartmentalizing things when you're a sports fan and how it goes. This is what I wonder. And again, I'll just go to the pure practical level of it. Regardless of whether Deshaun is guilty, innocent, liable, not liable, whatever it might be, we know for certain that, man, this guy handles his business a lot differently than I thought he did.
Yep.
And like, at what point are teams out there? Are there teams out there that maybe don't give a flying bleep about the moral implications, but are wondering, well, wait a second, am I going to give this guy $100 million guaranteed, and he's out seeing 50 massage therapists a year and doing whatever else, and who knows what? Is that the guy that I want to invest all this draft equity and money in? That's a big unknown. I don't know. And that's where I wonder with some of the contingencies, some of the conditions that teams are trying to put on that draft pick, maybe some of them go beyond just the current legal case. Because this is another thing teams have to wonder and worry about. All right, we know that 24 women have come forward and either filed a lawsuit or filed a complaint or both with the Houston Police Department. Who else is out there? What else might be uncovered at some point? And how much do we want to deal with that? I'm going to want compensation if I trade draft picks to the Texans. Maybe he's found not liable, and maybe there's no criminal investigation. But what if? Okay?
Yeah.
What if something else pops up? I want to get one of my draft picks back if that happens.
Yeah, I think if you're a team trading for Deshaun also, Seth, it's not just the 22 that are suing right now. It's not just the criminal investigations going on right now. It's a year from now or 2 years from now.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Look at, and remember, it's not a class action suit. Right. These are 22 separate lawsuits. So if somebody's, when you're part of a class action suit, you get a notice that says you have to reply by September 30th or you'll lose the right to get a settlement. That's not what this is.
No.
This is 22 separate cases. If these are all resolved somehow, 23, 24, and 25 could pop right up, at any given time. It's not as simple as just finishing it all off with one fell swoop.
All right, the Texans seem to be really happy for their head coach, David Culley, getting his first win on Sunday. There's an NFL team out there where I'm guessing they feel the complete opposite about their head coach right now based on how he handles his business with his team. We'll let you hear who it is next.
I'm Erin Ryan, political commentator, comedy writer, and host of Crooked Media's Hysteria.
And I'm co-host Alyssa Mastromonaco, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff for President Obama.
Each week on Hysteria, we are joined by a team of hilariously opinionated ladies to discuss the headlines from the serious to the absurd.
We cover everything from reproductive rights to rom-coms and break down the political news of the week and cultural stories that affect women's lives.
New episodes of Hysteria drop every Thursday. Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's a lot of streaming services out there, each filled with reality TV, comedy, drama, and of course, superheroes. But there's one dedicated entirely to nonfiction TV and documentary films, and that's Curiosity Stream. History, science, nature, we've got it. Space, dinosaurs, big cats, we've got that too. And pretty much anything else you want to explore. Go ahead, add some smart TV to your smart TV with Curiosity Stream. Go to curiositystream.com to sign up and start streaming today.
Why does quicksand work so slowly? Question everything. We did. It's how we created the all-new Hyundai Tucson with available innovations like a huge 10.25-inch infotainment screen and digital key technology. And you always get Hyundai's complimentary maintenance for 3 years or 36,000 miles. Test drive the 2022 Hyundai Tucson at your nearest Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.